So yeah, so thank you everyone for giving us some. I'm just sorting out some technical issues, giving us some of your time to learn a bit more about StrengthscopeLeader. Again, what we were going to do is just invite everyone to the introduction that we run online that we've been advertising to the public, but we did feel the need. Can you see that now, Christine? That should have been rectified now. But we decided there was a need for us to. Let me just pause this and see. To understand a bit more. This webinar is specifically aimed at our consulting partner community. The reason we're doing this is because we are running some introductory webinars, but quite often what they tend to be is almost like a general introduction to strengths, an introduction to strength scope, and then we're able to sort of touch on the leader profiler towards the end of that. However, a lot of that, or the 99% of that, will be something that everyone here is hugely comfortable with and hugely aware of. So what I'm going to do is very much quickly jump to StrengthscopeLeader. We're going to look at what the profile is, introduce that. Again, some of that might be some known by a lot of you already, but again, even in that case, this will be a way for you to see how we potentially position this as a new tool when we're speaking to new clients. So there's always value in that as well. And then what we'll do is we'll finish, and again, this is the agenda that we're going to go through. So we're going to talk about the profiler itself, so we're going to jump straight to that. So we're going to give some background to it, and then look at what the StrengthscopeLeader profile is and how that all works. Then we're going to talk about applications of the leader profile, how we foresee the profiler being used within corporate organisations or public sector organisations as well. Then we'll talk about some of the resources available to help you do that. And again, it's important to flag that up because again, even if you know this, it's important how we kind of position that so that when you're speaking to your customers or when you're speaking to clients, you know what's available and how that all works. And then the really interesting, important bit that's specific to this community here, we're going to talk about what we need from you and what we're going to do for you right now to help everybody get really up to speed with Leader in the most effective way. So that's kind of what we're going to do. Again, I'm going to try and get through as much as possible and as quickly as possible so we can potentially either finish a little bit earlier or at least give some opportunity for us to have some discussion around the tool in terms of how we feel it's going, how we feel the relevance we have and all that kind of thing. So I hope that's okay. So the first bit we're going to talk about is some of the background. And again, it's interesting because a lot of the people here, I know Frank will know an awful lot about the stuff that we've already been doing on this, and again, with his interactions with the company. I mean, a number of you will have some really detailed information on this and will probably be able to input on this part really well. But this is kind of how I have been providing some context and background to StrengthscopeLeader, and this sort of seems to land quite well and gives people a bit of an insight in terms of why we kind of developed it, why we feel there's a niche, why we feel there's a potential gap in the market for a tool like this. So what we talk about when we're talking about background is we begin by really stressing the idea that StrengthscopeLeader builds on the work that we've already done with StrengthsScope Standard, StrengthsScope 360 and StrengthsScope Team, as well as the Strengths Engagement Index. This isn't we haven't gone back to the drawing board, as it were. This is a natural progression from that suite of tools. So again, it's important to stress that, especially to people who have got an awareness of StrengthsScope already, that we're not revolutionising, we're very much developing and evolving what we've done already. The second point there is that this is a world's first. There are no other strengths-based leadership 360 profilers out there yet, and we're very much the first of that. So again, that's a really great, unique selling point for StrengthscopeLeader, and that's the second point there. So that's a great kind of bit of context, bit of background that you're going to be able to give. The third point here, again, is a really important stat, or not stat, but feature to flag up, is that it does measure the strengths, in the same way as StrengthsScope does, and in fact the measuring the strengths part is exactly the same as StrengthsScope. It uses exactly the same questions, and it will produce the same wheel, it will produce the same insights as that part does. But then what it does is it links that to some observable behaviours and habits of a strengths-based leader, and also links that as well to some tangible outcomes at the end of that. So again, that's where that's very much putting a bit more flesh on the bones around the evolution of StrengthsScope as a standard tool towards StrengthscopeLeader, and that's important for you to flag up when sort of putting some context behind it. And then finally, it's important to stress that it's not just a standalone product. It is part of a comprehensive and customizable leadership excellence program. What we mean by that is we have developed and are in the process of developing a number of workshops that you'll be able to, or potential clients will be able to attend to understand how to really develop their understanding of StrengthsScope and StrengthsScopeLeader to improve the skills of a leader. So we've got, and a lot of you will be aware of the 3 masterclasses that we're specifically talking about are the Strengths Accelerator one-day masterclass, the Strength Coaching for Results one-day masterclass, and the Engaging Performance Dialogues masterclass. And again, these have been developed or delivered in some incarnation already, but we're going to a point where that will be something that we'll be able to launch as a public, off-the-shelf, deliverable training course, which really supports the stuff we're doing around leadership excellence and development. Of course, there'll be great scope, pardon the pun, for us to sort of customize, bespoke, tailor, and really sort of strip that content down and make it really relevant to specific clients. But in addition to the StrengthsScopeLeader Profiler, it's important to remember that there's an awful lot more wrapping around that. And again, it's great that we're able to sort of call that our leadership excellence program. I'm just seeing that potentially program is spelled wrong there, but there you go. So that's the kind of first slide on that we'd introduce. Beyond that, we then start looking at that question, which is why do we think there is a need for a strengths-based leadership profiler? We've got StrengthsScope, we've got StrengthsScope 360, which gives people great insight on what their strengths are, and typically that is almost, that was enough. Why did we feel the need for us to develop something more? And these 4 points are really important for when we're talking about this. So the first point is that if the leaders especially have an understanding of what strengths are and strengths and the positive psychology strengths-based approach, the wider performance of the business will improve. And again, it's a specific focus on the leaders. Obviously, that makes sense. They're the ones driving the strategy and the culture and the direction of the business. And they are the people, if we can develop a specific profile, a specific tool aimed at that community, it's going to really help us accelerate the implementation of a strengths-based culture within a specific organisation. So that's probably point 1. The second point is this concept of authenticity. Developing strengths-based leaders or leaders who've got a great focus on strengths will give them some real authenticity for their people. They'll be able to develop themselves with. We'll be able to motivate those people and develop those leaders with some real kind of frameworks behind that. And what we mean by authentic is that it will give a leader a real detailed snapshot about who they are, and it highlights this idea that we're not expecting a leader to be strong in every single area. It's this idea that even a leader will have specific, unique strengths that we need to develop and use to develop these habits and behaviours and outcomes. And if a community see their leadership having that viewpoint, again, it links to this concept of authenticity, which is great. The third point is we were keen to really stress this link between the strengths that a leader potentially possesses and the behaviours that they're seen to have, as well as the outcomes that they're looking to generate, and creating a tool supporting obviously the work we're doing in coaching and training and facilitated workshops and all that kind of thing, and having that specifically included, encapsulated in a tool like the profile is going to be really, really powerful. And then finally, we were really keen to empower leaders to reduce the impact of their own weaker areas and overdone strengths. Again, given they're going to be at the top of a potential hierarchy, it's really important that we get them to really understand that. And so that's why we were keen to develop something even more comprehensive and detailed and potentially hard-hitting, because they're the ones, again, touching on that point that we raised at the beginning, they're the ones that are going to make the strategic impact on the whole organisation. So again, I quite like that slide. Again, a lot of that is probably old news to you, or you've been involved in the development of the rationale behind the tool anyway. But in terms of those two slides, I think they're really useful to kind of give some kind of context behind the whole thing. If we then go on, again, it's really important for us to talk about the assumptions that we've made when developing the tool. And again, I appreciate a number of people here will be involved in this and will be able to elaborate on this an awful lot more. But if I can just sort of fly through this relatively quickly, and about how I would potentially present this to a potential new customer, is this idea that an assumption about a leader is that a great leader will identify and build specific mastery around their own unique set of strengths. They're not a leader doesn't have 24 number 10s on the wheel. A leader, just as anyone else, will have a significant 7, and even within those significant 7, will have those 2 or 3 that really, really sum them up and that really can focus on. So a really strong leader will build mastery around those specific areas rather than looking to be a kind of all-rounder. And that's really key. That's the assumption that we've made, and again, that potentially may fly in the face of a number of other theories, but that's really important. Again, that runs through the whole tool. So the second assumption that we have made is that a great leader will focus on learning and improving habits that they have as a leader. So there's some specific habits a great leader will have, or specific behaviours, and we touched that in section 2 of the profiler. So a great leader will have an awareness of what behaviours they want to have, and will really constantly try to develop their ability to espouse that within what they do. So that's the kind of the second assumption. The third assumption is that a great leader, tying in with point 1, is a great leader will bring in others to complement them. So once they've got an awareness of what things they're really strong at and what are their strengths, they'll also have an awareness of what areas they're potentially not energized by. So a great leader will bring in others who do have those potential strengths to complement them and give them coverage across the wheel. And again, the tool will really help them see that. And then finally, again, this runs through everything we've been saying already in this webinar, is that a great leader will achieve their great feats by optimizing the strengths of the people reporting into them, their followers, the people, so that if they get that, they can trickle that down to their company. And again, it's building on this kind of collaboration, this understanding what your strengths are and pulling others around, and potentially making others aware of this kind of concept. And those are the kind of assumptions that we've made. And hopefully you'll see when we're looking at the profiler that runs through the whole tool. But yeah, there you go. So those slides, and again, you can tell I'm going to stress this again, but I appreciate a lot of this will be known, but hopefully in terms of the way we've even positioned it or put that together, it'd be quite useful. So to sum this section up, this is a kind of brings it all together. So the StrengthscopeLeader is designed to help leaders develop vital skills and behaviours, enabling them to optimise their strengths. So again, that's the strength scope part. So again, this is great for people who, StrengthscopeLeader is great for leaders who've never even seen that concept before. Have a look at the risk areas that they have, and again, it is hard hitting, and the 360 element will really give them some insight in terms of where those risk areas are, what the wider populace view as the risk areas, and any kind of insights that they can give. it will really give them some great techniques and methods to ensure that their staff are buying into this approach as well, and their colleagues and direct reports potentially are buying into this approach as well. And then finally, ultimately, it will be all tied into the outputs, and which is ultimately an improvement in performance. So again, it's a really tangible, pragmatic tool, as everything regarding StrengthsScope is. And yeah, so that kind of, I feel that slide's quite good, even though, again, a lot of that we've already covered, brings it all together quite nicely. So that's a bit of the kind of the background, the context, and the framing of Leader. Any questions at the moment, or am I able just to sort of plough on with the actual profile itself? No? I'll be quiet. I'll plough on. Okay. As I said, we'll record this, and again, there will be some opportunities later on to sort of throw some questions at me, and I can even I'll refer them to James and Danielle, who I know a lot, who obviously were involved in the development of the tool an awful lot more. But what we then go on, and what I typically then go on to do, is once we've given that context behind what it is, and it's almost like the whetting the appetite part. We then go and look at what the tool, what the profiler is, and what it's actually made up of. But before we've done that, it's important for us to sort of stress this, to use this slide. And again, when I was putting this slide together, I was like, well, a lot of this is really, really obvious. But what we found when we've been using this slide to introduce StrengthscopeLeader, it really does kind of put everything into, give every part of the whole process in place, and show you the sort of end-to-end life cycle of someone going through StrengthscopeLeader. So basically, the idea is a leader will complete StrengthscopeLeader in a really sort of nice graphic that we've done there. But unlike StrengthsScope Standard, there is no option for you to then go and get feedback at this point. This isn't a self-assessment tool, and at this stage, there is no option for you to just go and see, well, how do I view myself against the behaviours and outcomes and strengths. If you are looking for a self-assessment tool, obviously StrengthsScope Standard the option there, but StrengthscopeLeader very much is a 360. So there is a requirement for at least one person to provide feedback or be a nominee. But again, if they're only getting one, the value of the profile is going to be really compromised. This is designed to have multiple people feeding into that, and you can have up to 18. With my view, is that you want to be getting 18 if possible, because that's going to make some really reliable insights and findings. Whereas without that, obviously, and again, this is true with any 360. It's almost only as good as the number of people feeding into it. But the idea of this slide is to stress that that's not the end of the game. It's really important to get the true value out of a tool like this. You need to be thinking about how you're going to be using the tool to make a change, and that's ultimately what any psychometric needs to be doing. And so this is a very sort of rudimentary overview of the types of interventions that we foresee being underpinned by a tool like StrengthscopeLeader. So obviously we've got the debrief session, and again, what I'm really keen to get as many consulting partners in a position to be able to do is to be really comfortable delivering those debrief sessions. And there is a lot more to it than the standard StrengthsScope. But that's, as with anything, that's the kind of the core next step is to have an accredited partner or consulting partner actually help the leader understand what that profile means. And without it, it's just almost just a load of stats. That's where you're going to really start translating what the tool says into some meaningful outcomes. Building on that, obviously it's a great tool to be used as part of a leadership or exec coaching plan or program. And again, a lot of people within the CP community have done that work either directly with Strengths Partnership or themselves. And this is a great tool to be able to sort of underpin that. And that's a really great way of gleaning some really tangible insights and next steps and actions from the kind of analysis that comes from the profiler itself. The third point there is it's a great tool to be used as part of or integrated into a leadership development program, whatever that may be. More and more clients are looking to have really sort of innovative leadership development programs to engage, develop, and inspire their leaders to make them really, really on top of their game. And this is a great tool to be part of that. I foresee a lot of the work that we'll be doing, and consequently a lot of the work that the CP community will be doing, will be helping organisations integrate a tool like StrengthscopeLeader into what they're doing already with their leaders. So there'll be a lot of that, again, having to play on that collaboration strength is something that we're going to have to do a lot if we're looking to get this into organisations, because typically there'll be a really well-established leadership development program within the business already. So we need to be saying, well, we're going to be integrating rather than revolutionising. And then the final 2 points there, again, are interesting and important to flag up, is that once you've had that debrief and that insight from whether a development program, a coaching program, or even just a debrief session, it's important to stress that the profiler itself is a great reference point for that leader to keep referring to as they're going through their career, because in not only the insights, but there's the section 4, which will have some really great advice for a leader in terms of developing those behaviours. And then finally, it's great as part of an appraisal or personal development conversation for somebody in a leadership or strategic position. Either anyone will have appraisals and performance reviews, and this is a great resource to support that. So again, pretty obvious, but I think I quite like having it on on a slide to show where the profile sits within a process. I hope that was useful. So the profile itself is broken. It builds on this idea of the StrengthsScope wheel. So again, if you look at this, this is the StrengthsScopeLeader wheel, which a lot of people will have seen as part of the stretch book and the leadership research that we've done. In the centre, the what, as in the what part of this whole equation, is the what strength brings the leader, and that's the centre of this circle, and that very much is StrengthsScope. So the centre of StrengthsScopeLeader is StrengthsScope, and it's exactly the same as the StrengthsScope standard tool. The questions are the same, the output is the same, and again the stats are the same. So it's based on the rigour and the research and the psychometric properties of that particular tool. And for that reason, if there is anyone who's completed StrengthsScope already, who's looking to do this, they simply won't have to do those questions again, and the price will be reduced by the £35 that they've already paid for the StrengthsScope standard report. They won't be able to pull through their StrengthsScope 360 element of that, because there's a brand new 360 element as well, so they won't be able to. We won't discount it by 50, but the £35 they've already paid to understand what their own unique strengths are will be deducted automatically from the cost of their profile. But what this does, and again, the only additional is below the wheel here on the report. There is actually this kind of potted sort of shape, or as Danielle calls it, your strength signature, and that's something that's new, and again, that's something that will stay with that leader. But really, there is no different. When you're going through this, the whole process is the same. So it's an opportunity for that leader to understand and explore the areas of energy that they have, also the areas of non-energy that they have, and to understand what impacts that have, and whether they're a performance risk or an allowable weakness, or all those wonderful things that I'm sure everyone's very comfortable with. So that's the what part, and that's the centre of the circle. So that's where we start. But then StrengthsScopeLeader goes beyond that, and we go beyond from the what to the how, and this is the additional content of the report here. So the how part here is the second layer of this circle. So the how part is 4 key leadership habit areas or behaviours. And these 4 habits or behaviours are mentioned here. So we measure how effective leaders feel they are in the 4 key leadership behaviours mentioned. So these are the 4 habits that we're talking about, and again they map really nicely onto the wheel, so it's a good way to sort of to expand that. It's nice in terms of the follow through and that kind of thing. Let me just stop 1 second. Sarah, I'm going to unmute you. You just put your hand up very technologically, but let me unmute you now. Do you have a question?
Yeah, a couple of things. I actually, I was just looking for my glasses, so I missed what you were saying about the cost if somebody's already done the strengths. But so, the question I just put on the chat was, what's the kind of norm group used? Is it UK managers? You know, what is the norm group that's used for this?
So the norm group is obviously is exactly the same at this stage as what we use within StrengthsScope. But again, that's probably a question that I will have to refer to Danielle, who's not here yet.
Oh, okay.
Running in a little bit later on.
Okay, I've forgotten what it is for the StrengthsScope. That I would expect that to be more general population, that general management.
Yeah. So again, can I
Sure.
bat that back for now?
Sure.
And when Danielle is meant to be joining us in a little bit, and she can potentially feed into that answer, because that is a good. I'm sure that's a question that others will have.
Yeah, and HR people particularly.
Yeah, definitely.
That will want to know.
One thing I'll be touching on is some of the resources that you have available, and one of the resources is James will be doing a detailed sort of page-by-page analysis of the report. So what this isn't that, but James will be doing that, and that will be something that all our accredited partners and consulting partners would really encourage to have, or definitely have to review, because that will be an awful lot more analytical and provide an awful lot more insight in terms of the background and everything like that. But in terms of that kind of stuff, I'm keen for Danielle to sort of feed into that.
Okay.
A relevant question. Was there any other specific questions at this stage now, or?
Sorry, could you just repeat the pricing point that you made?
Yeah. So StrengthscopeLeader is the cost of StrengthscopeLeader is £150. However, for anybody who's already completed StrengthsScope and are just wanting to kind of upgrade, as it were, there'll be no need for them to redo all their StrengthsScope questions, because, as I said, part 1 is simply the self-assessment around what your strengths are. So if you do that and you're looking to upgrade to StrengthscopeLeader, we will discount the £150 by the £35 that they've already paid for that set of questions. So they will only pay £115. Does that make sense?
It does, thank you. How much is the StrengthsScope, the normal StrengthsScope 360?
So StrengthsScope normal StrengthsScope 360 is 50. StrengthsScope self-assessment is 35. So if they've done StrengthsScope 360, we'd still only discount by £35 because we redo the 360 element as part of StrengthscopeLeader.
Okay. So that's quite significantly more than the StrengthsScope 360. So it's going to be a different sell then. Okay.
So that's very much what this section is. So obviously the StrengthsScope 360 was very much just the what part of this presentation. StrengthsScope would have finished by now. This part of the webinar is the additional value that we're creating.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're going to have to really sort of stress the value that this tool brings in comparison to potentially the other tool.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Sarah. Cheers. Yeah, so that's this is very much the how part of what we're talking about. This is where the 360 element of StrengthscopeLeader really comes into its own, and the level of detail that we're providing in this section is absolutely brilliant. So as you can see on this wheel, this is the first thing you will see. So a leader will see where they rate themselves in these 4 behaviour areas. and then also the average rating of all their nominees together. So this gives a good kind of, if there's a disconnect between that, again, it's a great starting point for discussion or for analysis and exploration. But where the interest really comes is when we actually look at them itemized. So when we're looking at sharing vision, 4 items as part of that of the psychometric questionnaire make up this part of the profile, and you can see as part of the StrengthscopeLeader profile itself exactly how you rate yourself within the specific areas, but then more interestingly, an average score from what your people view. So again, you can see where specifically the disconnect is. So here there's a remarkable disconnect between how the raters view this particular leader's ability to keep people updated around the bigger picture and long-term priorities. They seem to think he's pretty good at that, whereas he's pretty down on himself on that. But what's more, again, but we go into even more information on that, is that there's detailed itemized 360 analysis on an item-by-item basis. So we'll even break that question down. So again, we're looking at this one here. So we look here. So the question is, how effective is this particular leader inspiring others with simple, energizing, and a realistic vision of what success would look like? You can see what he rated himself, and then you can see what different groups view in different ways. And that's a really great, some great detail there that you can really sort of start to explore. And especially if you're using this as part of a longer, more comprehensive executive coaching program, there's some great points of discussion, or it will bring up an awful lot to talk about. So that's a really important additional value for the tool. And again, this isn't part of 360. This isn't of StrengthsCope 360 or StrengthsCope Standard. Once we've done the how part, and again, in addition to this detailed analysis, there will be verbatim feedback at this point as well, as with any leadership profile, and you'll see all of this as part of the sample report, which I'll send you after this as well. We link that into outcomes. So again, this is the final layer of this circle here. So again, how effective is this leader at delivering the outcomes that a great leader or a great strengths-based leader should aspire to being able to do? So the 4 outcomes that we've got here are purpose, passion, process, and performance. Obviously, performance is potentially one of the most interesting, or the most interesting for many leaders, because that's the kind of the performance of the business. But in addition to that, there is other feeding or tributing outcomes that we analyse and ask as well. So again, there's some detailed 360 feedback here, and again, this will be contributed by the verbatim comments as well. And then the report will culminate with a 360, an overall 360-degree analysis of a leader's effectiveness in delivering this strong or strengths-based leadership. And again, this is a great or potentially divisive sort of summary of everything. But we give we give the average, but then we also give the lowest scores and the highest scores on that as well, which is useful. So they're the kind of 3 sections, and again, that's the kind of the core of what it physically is. But it's really important that it's that link between the strengths approach that they have as part of the StrengthsScope Standard to these behaviours and outcomes that we believe great leaders should have and be able to deliver is the real key differentiator. Also, that they're able to add more nominees, so it's a more comprehensive 360 profiler than StrengthsScope Standard. And also those verbatim comments are going to be great insights as well. And then finally, in addition to the analysis, Part D will include advice and references for how to make these changes and give some really key tools and activities and insights and advice to help that leader. So when I was talking before about this being a reference point. This is great for that. So again, that's kind of how we, at this stage, or at the kind of introductory stage, would kind of introduce the tool. I think quite often you'll find that questions at this point tend to, you almost don't want to answer them, you want to just allow somebody to sort of try it out, kind of thing. And we'll talk a little bit about how we're going to support you with that later on. So again, very quickly, we're going to talk about. Again, sorry. Does anyone have any questions at this stage, or I'm conscious I'm knowledge dumping a little bit on this because there is simply so much to talk about. Is there anything anyone wants to say? Okay. Well, I'll unmute it towards the end to open it up for questions because again, we seem to be making relatively good time. So the applications of the leader, again, we've talked about this already, and again, I think this is pretty self-explanatory, especially given the experience a lot of you have with StrengthsScope, Strengths Partnership, and Strengths Approach. But really, these are the kind of the 4 key ways we envisage the tool being used. So first and foremost, is this debrief session, and I'm really keen to get as many people within our consultant base, but also within the wider consulting partner community, really comfortable and happy to be delivering great 90-minute, 2-hour feedback sessions on StrengthscopeLeader. That's where we want to get to, because I'll talk a little bit later on in terms of about what the market's saying to me and what our potential prospect clients are saying, and this is something I want to develop. It's going to be a great tool as part of our coaching program. So a lot of people here are really skilled and expert coaches, and a tool like this, we envisage being part of that, but really we need that the individual coaches able to understand the value at a really detailed level, so they can start using this tool in the most effective way. Thirdly, and again we touched on this, is leadership development training or leadership development learning or programs, or whatever that looks like. Again, integrating this tool into one of them, I and the business envisage being a really lucrative way of getting this tool to the wider market. And then finally, team building. So executive team building, executives or leaders within teams of leaders. This will be a great tool to facilitate, be used as part of facilitated workshops or anything like that, to ensure that everyone knows each other's strengths, but in addition to that, how is the leadership community getting on at doing these 4 key outcomes and behaviours and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's really important as well. And again, that's a good slide to sort of flag that up as well. So that's great. Sarah's asked a question around StrengthsScope team. So at the moment, we haven't. So the StrengthsScope team profile talks about, in a similar way to StrengthscopeLeader, talks about behaviours of a peak-performing, effective team. So in a similar way, StrengthscopeLeader talks about the behaviours of an effective leader. What you're able to do is use, obviously, the strengths element. So that would still be true of a team of executives, if that makes sense. But again, that's a question that Danielle, I wish she was here. She promised me she would be here, but she's not here. Would be able to add an awful lot more to. And again, that might be something that's worth potentially circulating some information around after this webinar, when we've got some firm information about how that would link into the StrengthsScope team report. Because again, if you've got a team of leaders, I think it'd be great for us to be able to do some analysis, or at least do some bringing together of that, and that's something that we can explore. We are able to do the layered group profile report using StrengthscopeLeader, but that would very much just be layering the significant 7 strengths of a team of leaders. So there's potentially some more we can do with that. I appreciate. Let me just stop 1 second. Again, Mike, you've just mentioned about the leadership team report. Really good. Again, this is potentially an obvious next step for us. At this point, we don't have, as far as I'm aware, this linked into the StrengthsScope team framework beyond just the simple the strengths bit. But it's definitely something worth exploring. And again, that's something that we might have to just come back to you following the session. So let me just continue. So as a user, as in yourselves, but also would it be okay, again, there's some questions coming on around this sort of bringing this together around team. Would it be okay if we did sort of pick this up beyond the session? Because linking this in with team is definitely something I want to explore. But I'm just keen to get through the content here because again, we've got a little bit more to get through. But yeah, I don't think it's a good question because I think it's a really great, obvious next step for this, and I'm already hearing some requests for this kind of information. So let me just talk about the resources available to you as a consulting partner, but anybody who's looking to use a tool like this. So we've got an awful lot available. So first of all, we've got the Stretch Leadership book and StrengthscopeLeader. Danielle has just walked in 15 minutes late, but you know.
I do apologise. Hello everyone.
We've just had some great questions that you should have been here to help me with.
I'm here now.
It's good stuff. But let me just try through this, and then I might just unmute everyone, and potentially Danielle could potentially feed into some of the questions that we had earlier. So we've got the Stretch Leadership book and the StrengthsCope, and then some additional StrengthscopeLeader activities in the resource area, which is great. There is going to be potentially a sort of 90-minute to 2-hour-long detailed analysis of page by page of the leadership profile recorded by James. Not available yet, but that's available in the very near future. We're expecting that over the next few days. Finally, and then the final thing, again, especially those people looking to introduce this to new clients, there is a great 2-page sales, almost with a sales collateral for you to sort of use when introducing it to people who've never even heard of it, the strengths approach or anything like that, which we'll share with you as well. In addition to that, the user guide's been updated so that you know how to physically administer the tool if you're an accredited partner or you're managing that yourself. We've also got an FAQ document which I'll send to everyone here because there's probably some questions that people haven't asked or have asked and my answers have just been a bit rubbish, but the answers in that FAQ document are going to be are really good and really strong, so we'll share that with you as well. And then finally there's a great animation that we've developed, and I would normally play it on a session like this, but we're running out of time a little bit. But that's a really great way, again, if you've got a visual of a client who's really engaged well with media like this, it's a really great way to introduce what it's all about. And it's quite funny as well, which is cool. And then finally, we've developed some great free feedback questionnaires. So leaders who've completed Leader but are waiting for their debrief, it's a great questionnaire for them to sort of come in.
Start thinking about it.
And start thinking about what that report means to them. So yeah, and we're going to be constantly developing that and making sure that the community of StrengthsCope users have everything they could ever need to be effective at delivering this kind of stuff. Yeah, so let's continue. So in addition to that, obviously, there is the training or the trainer training that we have available going on from the accreditation. I touched on this very early on in the presentation here, which is, we've got the standard StrengthsCope accreditation. There isn't going to be a StrengthscopeLeader accreditation, but there are going to be some really great specific masterclasses that we're developing. And if you see the bottom 3 here, these are all specifically aimed at people in either leadership positions or using StrengthscopeLeader. So that's our Strengths Accelerator, Strengths Coaching for Results, and Engaging Performance Conversations. So yeah, that's great. The final bit, so again, that kind of content is very much how, if anyone who's been on my other webinars, is kind of what we cover during those webinars. But this part here is very much specifically for the CP community, and we want to make sure that you are comfortable with the tool. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we need from you, but also what we're going to give you to help you get up to speed, if that makes sense. So we need all our CPs up to speed with StrengthscopeLeader as soon as possible. It's really in our interest to have as many people comfortable, competent, and experienced using the tool. So to do this, if you haven't already completed StrengthsScope Leader, we will send you completion instructions, and please do complete this as soon as possible to get a first-hand understanding. We won't charge you for this. There will be no fee or anything like that. Simply complete that yourself. Try and be as put yourself in the delegate shoes as much as possible. And then once you've completed, simply let us know, and we'll make that report available for you. You won't have to use any of your own credits on your account to do that. And we'll also allow you to nominate one other individual to complete StrengthsScope Leader, so you can practice debriefing. So again, this is something that's exactly the same. Set them up yourselves on your system. Get them completing the profile. Once they're completed, let us know, and we'll make sure that report's downloaded. And again, we won't take any credits off your account. So this is really important. Again, we really want everyone doing this, because this will help you get to know what it's all about. Because it's all very well and good me telling you, but completing it yourself is a really important thing. Jasper said, will it be worthwhile completing alongside a leader we know, so he's contextualising leadership practice, thereby observing, experiencing it, but also being practical? Yeah. Great idea. I think that's again what the whole point of this is obviously let's give you the opportunity to use this in the most realistic and relevant context as possible. Danielle's going to be doing an awful lot more work on the leadership analysis and research on this. So anything that you do in that, definitely a good idea. That's why we're letting you do this kind of thing, and we're not going to be expecting you to buy credits for that, because again, we think it would be a great way for you to complete. So yeah, good question, Henry. No, Sarah, you will have to use the 360 element, unfortunately. You don't. So David just asked, so let me just pick up Sarah's point. So there is no way of completing StrengthsScope Leader without the nominees feeding into it. We would really encourage you to complete it just as a leader. Obviously, there's no need necessarily for everyone here to have 18 nominees, but maybe it'd be good to have a couple of people feeding into that and almost just doing it as realistically as possible. The guys internally here felt that was really useful to almost just do it as realistically as possible. Go on, sorry, Daniel.
I just wanted to add to that, Sarah. So I'm not sure Patrick, I'm sure he has already though, explained the rationale a bit behind the nominees. So obviously no leader operates in isolation, and we do recommend that you have as many nominees as possible. However, if you are wanting to just understand a little bit more about StrengthsScope Leader, you could always add yourself as a nominee and just go through the nominee process. We found that this really helped us internally and also for our international partners to gain a first-hand experience of what it's like to complete StrengthsScope Leader, what it's like to be a nominee for that, so that when you are doing the debrief sessions, you would know the type of questions that they ask, the process that you went through, so that you can, really contextualize that information to the individual.
Yeah, lots of questions coming through now, so this is great. Yeah, good point, Danielle. So Dave Niskamin's asked, will credits be added to our account after today so we can take action promptly? You can definitely take action promptly. What we're hesitant to do is simply add credits to the account, because we want to make sure that this is very much used with StrengthsScope Leader. So what I suggest you do is, as soon as you've completed, let us know and we'll make those reports available, and that can happen straight away. Someone within the office will be able to do that as soon as that's happened. Again, we're really keen to do that.
So as Patrick mentioned, there is an updated user guide, and StrengthsScope Leader works exactly the same as StrengthsScope 360 on the system. At the time of project setup, you simply add that module onto your project. You can send the instructions out as you normally would. And it's also a great way to get you using StrengthsScope Leader and the system. And then, as Patrick also mentioned, once the person's completed StrengthsScope Leader on your account, let us know. We'll add the credits on and make the report available to you. So,
yeah. Jackie's asked a question, I completed leader during beta testing. Has the report changed much? If so, could my report be run again?
I'm afraid, Jackie, the report has not changed significantly, but it's changed enough that you wouldn't be able to rerun your report just because some of the sections in the new report aren't in the old report. I can share your old report with you if that helps, but I'm afraid it won't be possible to rerun any of the reports that have already been completed.
Of course, if you want to do it all again yourself, happy to do that.
Absolutely.
It's a good opportunity. Christine, I offered a free report of another tool I use to a potential client and one team coaching program as a result.
Hopefully that was one of our tools.
Yep. Okay, Christine, okay, that was what I was saying. Yeah, good point. Yeah, so it's always great to use this firsthand. Yeah, so the only thing we will say about this is that there is a bit of a timeline for us to get you to do this. So we're really keen for these reports, whether it's yourself or your nominee, to get this done by the 15th of April, because again we've got some pretty tight deadlines around our research and we want to get the StrengthsCope leader usage up very quickly. So if we can get that all done by the 15th of April, that would be brilliant.
The feedback sessions don't need to be done by that date. It's just making
just
sure
the completion of the questionnaire. So that's great. So again, linking back to why we want you to do this is because obviously we want everyone here to be able to speak about the value of StrengthsCope Leader with comfort and ease, and experiencing it firsthand yourself, as well as experiencing it alongside a potential client is a really good way of doing that. It's definitely a good first step.
And especially if any of our clients that you are working with ask about it, it's always good to have that first-hand experience so that you can have those conversations.
Yeah, brilliant. Christine's asked a really good question as well. So do CPs need to complete 3 masterclasses in order to be considered for work opportunities via Strengths Partnership? Great question. As much as I'd like to say, yes, you must attend 3 masterclasses to do that, there is no prerequisite for you to have completed masterclass training courses to be considered for work for us. Obviously, it would definitely help your position, but also ultimately what we're keen to do is for you guys to feel comfortable with the tool and be able to really know what it's all about, and that's kind of what we're here to make sure that you've got the opportunity to do that. Obviously, yeah, it's not going to hurt, but
yeah. Just to add to Patrick's point, I mean, we're not changing the way that we're working with our consulting partners, so there's no need to worry about any of that. That master practitioner diagram is something that we're about to launch to the rest of our accredited partner community. So you can keep an eye out for that in the communication, but please don't worry, we won't be changing it.
Yeah, so obviously, that's very much for our end customers, and again, and hopefully there will be opportunities for us to reach out more to talk to the CPs to help us almost deliver them. But yeah, it's slightly different for you guys. So yeah, that's the first reason is that. Second reason is for me especially, when the work that I'm doing quite often, the first almost opportunity regarding StrengthsCope Leader will be a consultant delivering StrengthsCope Leader feedback or a debrief session, and the more of you guys available who can physically do them effectively, that it makes my life easier, because I will start being able to throw these out to more and more people, especially you guys based a little bit further afield. That's going to really help us out. So again, really keen for us to do that. Dave, that's a question. So David says, appreciate the need for a deadline. Time across the 2 E3s, so like to restrict the number of raters we share with clients. Any flexibility on your ideal end date? Potentially, yeah. I think that's you're right. If we can aim for the 15th of April, that's fine. But again, if you're coming up against everyone being on holiday, yeah, we'll definitely offer some flexibility on that. Yeah, so.
Yeah, David, just to point out, as you've correctly got there. The feedback session doesn't need to be done by the 15th
Yeah.
of April. It's really just getting the person to complete StrengthscopeLeader
Yeah.
and as many ratings as possible.
Brilliant. Cool. Just to finish off, so obviously we really want you to be helping us thinking about how to integrate StrengthscopeLeader into client conversations and work where relevant. And that's, again, we're really keen to make sure that you, at a very base level, you've got some really great understanding of what the tool is. So that's, again, one of the reasons why. And then finally, we want you guys are the ones who are going to help contribute to developing our sales. And if you are able to make the sales yourself, the 30% discount still will apply to that. And again, it's definitely worth kind of flagging that up. That is pretty much it for now. I'm going to unmute everyone so we can potentially have some questions. But yeah, that's 5 o'clock on the nose. We're doing all right there. But let me unmute everyone. Does anyone have any questions, or is there? Would you like us just to follow us almost like one-on-one with this? Everyone's unmuted.
Patrick, it's oh, okay. Patrick, it's Christine here. That was really great webinar. I attended the accredited partner one as well, but this is just built on it. What's your feeling about the potential work opportunities for CPs through StrengthscopeLeader?
Well, I think, as I said on that final slide, I can foresee us having more. I'm already having situations where clients are saying to me, well, who's going to debrief this for me? And obviously this has only been released early February. We don't really have many people. If I had more and more people available who are really comfortable in providing some really strong feedback on that, I think that would be very quickly there will be some opportunities there. And then obviously building on that is with the coaching and with the leadership development piece. I'm hearing that, and again, there's nothing concrete we can say, but that's kind of, if you're in a position where you're like, Patrick, I can really comfortably do this. If you've got any opportunity for me to go in and do some leader feedback sessions, I'm your person. There'll definitely be some work, I'm sure. For
and we're really wanting to see StrengthscopeLeader integrated into our offering, and we don't want it to be seen as something different to our current offering to our clients. We want you to be able to speak about it. If you come across a coaching session where you think it would be great for StrengthscopeLeader to be involved, we want you to be able to start having those conversations with the clients, introduce it in. So it's very much a new offering for Strengths Partnership, and we just want it to be seamless, as is the rest of our assessments.
That's great. Thanks very much for that.
Great.
Brilliant, thanks. The slides definitely will be available. I'll send them out to everyone following the session. But yeah, other than that, any feedback? Yeah, do complete your evaluation forms. Please, please, please. And again, I've written there's some specific questions that I would really like to get your take on it. So I think when you finish this, you'll get taken to the form itself, and it'd be great if you could.
I do apologize to Patrick and to everyone else for. I'm sure you can ask the office, but I ran across the office to come into the meeting.
Daniel, Sarah did have a question around norm group. Sarah, maybe you could sort of repeat that question. We can potentially have a look at that now.
Yeah, just very quickly, Danielle. I've noticed that the people are having to go, but just very quickly, what's the norm group that is used? Is it general population or management? What's the norm group?
So at this point in time, we are using the same norm group as StrengthscopeLeader, which is the UK working population. It is a stratified sample.
Okay.
So because StrengthsCope is core to StrengthscopeLeader, we haven't changed that yet. It's exactly the same information, and the rest of the report is actually compared to a norm group. So you'll see from the habit section, as well as the like a confidence index, that's actually your self-rating versus the nominee rating. So there's no norm group involved in that.
Yes. Yeah.
We are looking at doing something in terms of benchmarking reports with the system upgrade that we're going to be working on towards the end of the year. So so you can keep an eye out for that. But at this point in time, the short story is it is the same norm group as StrengthsScope.
Okay, and what are the behaviours and outcomes based on? How have they been devised?
So those are based on research. And Patrick mentioned that James will be doing a recorded feedback session. He does touch on the research in that, and we have asked him to explain a little bit more about the actual research that goes into those.
Okay, great, thanks.
Cool.
Brilliant. Cool. Sorry we kept you everyone a little bit later, but yeah, do complete those evaluation forms for me following this. That'd be really good. And I'll record this and I'll share the recording with everyone. So if you want to have a little listen back, that'd be great. Otherwise, thanks for giving me your time. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Patrick and Danielle. Have a great weekend as well.
Patrick, a question for you if I can.
Brilliant.